Welcome back to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm Ali Maxwell. This is your weekend football punting preview. 4 games from the Premier League and some action from elsewhere as well. We're going to get some insight and hopefully some value selections from my guests, Adrian, Clarke, football broadcaster and former professional, of course, and Mark O'Hare joins us as ever as well. Gents, before we start, Matchbook offering a £10 risk-free bet for customers that sign up today. If you want the terms and conditions, head to offer.matchbook.com. Check out what you can receive for signing up to Matchbook today. This is for over 18s only, and we ask that you be gamble aware, please. We're going to start with Manchester City against Wolves. A quick caveat that we are recording this Thursday morning before Wolves' game in Besiktas. The market's already sort of reacting to the fact they have that fixture and the fact that they are playing the mighty Manchester City at the Etihad. On site currently, Manchester City 1.13 to win this game. Wolves available at 23 to 1, 24.0 on site, and the draw just under 9 to 1 at 9.8. On the handicap, well, Man City minus 2.25 goals, 1.91. Wolves plus 2.25 goals, 2.04. Over 3.5 is 2.01 and the under 3.5, 1.91. So, Mark, again, with the caveat that we are recording before that tie in Besiktas, it's going to be very difficult for this Wolves. I wonder, from a punting perspective, where you think there might be some value in this game. Each week we talk about Liverpool and Man City at these crazy short prices, and I'm always interested to hear from a proper punter's perspective where you can eke out a bit of value.
Yeah, it's very difficult, Ali. City are sub 1.3 for every home game they play, excluding games against the Big Six. But occasionally they are around 1.3 against the Big Six teams too. So that's obviously the case here. They're a lot shorter than 1.3. And even at that price, if we take a flat 1.3 price, implies City wins 77% of the time, which is obviously outrageous, really. They're, as you say, 1.13, which implies they're closer to an 83%, 84% chance here. It's very hard to disagree, really. They've won 88% of their Premier League games since the start of 2017-18. Only failed to score once in that run as well. And they scored the most top-flight goals in the first 7 league games of the season since Everton in 1894. Obviously had an easy midweek as well against Dynamo Zagreb, 80% of the ball, created bags of chances, only scored 2 goals in the second half. But that was their 5th win on the spin since that Norwich game. Obviously, I think that was a bit of a wake-up call. But they have got a big handicap here, and ordinarily, I would second. I'd have another look at City to cover this. But I think I outlined last week there are issues in the City team right now, not necessarily long-term, but there's reasons why I opposed them on the handicap last week. I felt let down, really. I thought Everton did more than enough to stay within the goal of City last week. Had 8 shots on target, the most City have conceded in the Premier League since November 2015. Had 38 touches in the penalty area, which is more than 3 times than City normally concede. Generated 2.3 expected goals. Obviously, Goodison Park is a tricky game away from home when they're up against it. But there's so many issues apply here. No Laporte, no Stones. Otamendi and Fernandinho at centre half. It's obviously going to be a growing partnership with the 2 playing centre half regularly now. And I actually like Fernandinho playing centre half. It's Otamendi the issue I have. And then the left back was Zinchenko or Mendy. There's definitely issues there. Mistakes can happen. They might hog possession, but Everton and Watford showed you're always in with a sniff, really. And De Bruyne, 8 assists already this season, is a major doubt as well. So just one thing that really interested me really about City, surprisingly so actually, obviously very early in the season still, but Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, Everton and Wolves are just some of the teams that have given up fewer expected goals from open play than City this season. They actually rank along the same level as Burnley, Aston Villa and Brighton, which is really, really surprising. It just shows that they have been quite sloppy in defensive areas, despite dominating the ball, despite dominating goal-scoring chances. But as far as this game goes, obviously, I'm trying not to talk about Wolves because we've got the caveat of playing on Thursday night. We don't know how much rotation, if any, Nuno's going to make. But their only away defeat since promotion by 3 or more goals came at Man City last season. It was a very strong City team too. They went down by 2 goals at Anfield. So I'm reasonably hopeful they can try and stay in shape, stay competitive here. Because I just looked at the City handicap. Again, similar sort of lines to last week with with Everton scoring a goal. City have played 41 home games since the start of 2017-18. 17 of those have been won by 3 or more goals, which is 41%. But at home, when they've conceded a goal, they've only covered this handicap in 5 of 22 home games, which to me suggests if Wolves can get a goal, which I believe they can stay within a handicap of 2.5. So I'm going to have Wolves plus 2.5, slightly shorter than the advertised price you gave there. I think it's around 1.8. Obviously, a very tentative play when City are involved, especially at home, but that's the way I'd be playing it.
Adrian, what have you got to add on this game? Fairly comprehensive Mark O'Hare answer to kick off the pod, but we're looking at a City team who, by pretty much any metrics are about as good as we've seen in the Premier League, but they're also 5 points behind league leaders Liverpool. There's been a pretty distasteful row, I suppose, or issue with Bernardo Silva in recent weeks as well, which won't be helping them necessarily on the pitch. It's not, I was going to say it's not going to be an easy game for them, this, but actually the bookies don't agree. So I'm interested to know what you can add.
Yeah, look, Mark was on fire there with the stats, wasn't he? As always, it's hard to disagree. I do feel that Wolves have a good record against the big teams, primarily at Molineux, obviously, but away from home, they've put up a good fight on numerous occasions. Just as a point to note, that 3-0 defeat last year, they were down to 10 men for most of the game. I think Willy Bolly got sent off in the first period. So they are a team that can keep things tight. I think on the back of a European game, their focus would definitely be on defence. We've seen them become more of a counter-attacking side since they came into the Premier League. They dominated the ball in the Championship. This season, their average possession has dropped markedly from last. I think they're down to 45. So I think it will be all City. But I'm not that convinced that they will carve them open for fun, especially if De Bruyne is out. Aguero played.
Norwich showed, didn't they, that even with City dominating the ball, if you can get your transitions right, if you can execute 2 or 3 counterattacks properly in the course of a game, then there's a chance that you might create 1 or 2 really, really good chances with City very open.
Definitely, yeah. I think this will be a tighter game. It might be one-way traffic in terms of territory, but I don't see an absolute tonking here for Wolves. I think Wolves on the handicap, as Mark has said, is appealing. I think the 2-goal mark is about right, but if you're feeling brave, I think even on a shorter handicap, they might be okay. I see a narrow Manchester City victory, and actually, I don't see that many goals either.
Okay, let's move on to Arsenal and Bournemouth. This one's at the Emirates on Sunday, and Arsenal 1.48 to win this game. Bournemouth 6.8, and the draw 4.85. Arsenal with -1.25 goals, well, -1.25 goals, I should say, 2.03, and Bournemouth plus 1.25, 1.92. Over 3.5 goals is 1.97. And under 3.5 goals, 1.94. The fact that that's the sort of headline goal line on the Matchbook site at the moment slightly reflects what I was going to say to you, Adrian, which is my sort of gut reaction when I saw this fixture is an open, entertaining game, minimum 3 goals, probably Arsenal scraping a 3-2 win late on, lots of excitement and some poor defending. How close to your much more measured analysis would that be?
Well, that's definitely not an unlikely scenario. I would suggest that. Look, Arsenal won this fixture 5-1 last season. Bournemouth, I don't know if you've seen this stat, their last 3 visits to London, they've let in 5 goals in each of the games. So they don't like their visits to the capital. No team in history has done it 4 times in a row. So Arsenal got something to go for there. And look, anyone that's seen Arsenal of late or the game at Old Trafford will know that cohesion inside the final third isn't what it should be at the moment. Pepe and Aubameyang are playing as individuals. Aubameyang's brilliant, by the way. He's absolutely sensational. But Pepe not so much at the moment. We need to see those two linking up a lot more. And this might be the game where they can run free a little bit more. Bournemouth have got 2 away wins already, of course. So they'll go with some semblance of confidence. But no, I think Aubameyang and Arsenal in this one is the way to go. I can see him extending his goal scoring streak, and Arsenal scoring at least 3 goals in the game, because Bournemouth, let's face it, they're not the sort of side that will set up defensively. By the way, he likes Sundays, does Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He scored in each of his last 6 matches on a Sunday. And I did read a stat that he's got 26 of his 39 Premier League goals have been scored on a Sunday, which I think probably is a reflection of Arsenal's fixture list being in the Europa League, but he absolutely loves it. So if you like little quirks like that, maybe go with Aubameyang and a handsome Arsenal win.
Okay, Mark, what's the pod selection for this fixture?
Yeah, very similar lines really. Arsenal -1 on the Asian handicap would be where I was going. If you can get north of 1.7, fantastic for that. I think it's great value. Arsenal United on Monday, not much to say really about that. I think when you see the captains lining up as Ashley Young and Granit Xhaka, you know you're not going to be in for a game like the late 90s or early noughties. But I thought Unai Emery's team selection was a little bit disappointing, a little bit safe for that game. He would have been the happier of the 2 coaches after the game, but Bernd Leno made a few decent stops. Saka obviously impressing again. I still think Pepe will come good. But I saw friend of the podcast, Matt, last week saying, or earlier on Monday saying, there are positives really in Arsenal's season, despite all the sort of doom-mongering. They've already had to play 3 of the big 6 already. So, and a home tie against Bournemouth is, ideally where they kind of come to the party, really. Emery rested and rotated in the Europa League against Frankfurt. I expect him to do the same against Standard Liège on Thursday. So I think they'll be at it. I know they weren't convincing against Aston Villa. Circumstances didn't really work in their favour in that match, but they have won 16 of 22 home league games under Emery. That's 73%. They've won by at least 2 goals on 12 occasions in that. That's 55%. And 18 of the last 23 home wins have been by 2 or more goals. Now, I love Bournemouth. I think, like Arsenal, they're probably the league's most predictable team to punt, really. So, as you say at the start there, Ali, it's all about goals, but they also come unstuck when they play these big teams. They've got a dreadful record against the Big 6, particularly away from home. 20 defeats from 24 away since promotion at Big 6 teams, 17 of which were by 2 or more goals, and they've conceded 3 or more times in 15 of those 24 as well. If you look at last season, all 14 of their away defeats came by at least 2 goals, including 9 of 9 trips to the top 9. So they're great fun to watch. They'll have a go. Look at their games already this season. BTTS is banked in all 7, but they are punching. They're overperforming at the moment. I suspect they'll regress soon, and I think Sunday might be a bit difficult for them. So Arsenal to clear a handicap.
Mark O'Hare, I love Bournemouth. That's the quote that I've taken away from this podcast. That's brilliant. It might sound like we're bashing them a little bit here, talking about their record away at big teams, but we have noted before, haven't we, that they're sort of the lack of compromise that they make in changing their style in these big games, possibly, and it's hard to quantify, helps them in the games against teams around them because they're not having to chop and change week to week, and they have a very clear idea of how to get at teams. But it does make for brilliant spectacles when they go away to the big side. So I'm looking forward to that game immensely. I'm also looking forward to Liverpool and Leicester. This is a 3:00 Saturday game, which I feel like's a shame, really. This would be a good one to have on TV in the UK. Liverpool, the home side, 1.47, which is pretty long for this Liverpool team at Anfield. And Leicester, 7.5, the away team. The draw, 4.65. Liverpool -1.25 goals, available at 2.07. And Leicester with 1.25 goals at 1.88. Over 3 goals, 2.05. And the under, 1.87. Brendan's back at Anfield. I'm sure it'll be a fantastic game between 2 fantastic football clubs with fantastic players and played in a fantastic spirit. But I'd like to know what you guys think, because look, after that game on Monday night on the weekend between Leicester and Newcastle, Leicester demolishing Newcastle, well, in terms of scoreline, a 10-man Newcastle. This week, the discussion has been Leicester are the team that can break into the top 6, possibly even the top 4. But I'm aware, Mark, that the underlying numbers don't necessarily bolster that theory really strongly. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I've heard this argument a couple of times this week. I'm not necessarily sure I agree, because I've been looking at the numbers, both attacking and defence, and they're pretty strong. I've been not hugely impressed by Leicester, it has to be said, but those numbers that, certain high-profile, pundits have been talking about don't necessarily bear fruit, because I looked at expected goals and XG from open play, ratio. And Liverpool at this stage of the season are only slightly better than Leicester, which kind of shows you how good Leicester have probably been. If you look at chance creation, Leicester are only marginally behind Liverpool, but they're considerably better in terms of limiting opposition opportunities over those first 7 games. So obviously, if you balance the two out, they're not a huge distance away from the biggest teams in the league. So my main concern for Leicester, though, is these sorts of situations for Brendan Rodgers. He has a tendency to overthink things. We saw that at Old Trafford. Made a few odd decisions tactically and personnel-wise, didn't work out. It's his first return to Anfield, so it's a huge issue for a huge occasion for him. Maddison should be back, but Dennis Pratt was excellent last week, so he would deserve inclusion, I think. But I think if Leicester are going to have a joy here, they need to stick to their guns, stick to their ideals, play the way that's worked so well for them, throughout Rodgers' reign, which is getting Jamie Vardy in behind, causing problems on the counter-attack. Only Aguero's got a better goals per minute ratio against big 6 teams than Vardy. You look at those fullbacks for Liverpool, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, they love to get forward. There are going to be opportunities for Leicester on those transitions. If they're confident, I don't think they were confident at Old Trafford. They weren't confident for the first half at Chelsea either. Then they realised that they're actually in a game there. And I've said before, their long-term record away at teams, when you exclude the bottom 6, is really, really poor. 18 defeats, 6 draws and 4 wins, conceding twice or more in 18 of those 28 games. They've lost 6 of the last 8 away at big 6 teams as well. So, there are a few issues that need to be ironed out. I still feel Leicester need to have plenty to prove here, but just looking at the match, I think Liverpool haven't been as tight as we probably expected them to be, compared to last season at least. The numbers, showcase that as well. We saw as well in midweek against RB Salzburg that they can be got at, but it's that home record which kind of really stands out, which makes them very hard to oppose, really. So I looked at the handicap line. I think it's probably fair enough. Leicester gave Liverpool a really good game at Anfield, I think last December or around the festive period. They got a draw in that match. So they are capable of turning up and putting on a show. But I prefer to go down the goals route, really. I think Liverpool's last 10 games at Anfield have been by an aggregate score of 33-6 in their favour. They scored 2 goals in every game this season, bar last weekend's against Sheffield United. So if you think Liverpool will score twice, and obviously you feel that Leicester have got potential to cause them a few problems, then the over 2 3/4 goals comes into play at 1.77ish. I think it was Thursday morning. Liverpool have seen 46% of their last 41 games at Anfield feature 4 or more goals. They've actually scored 3 or more times in over half of those games too. I know Matip and Alisson are very close to full fitness too, but I don't expect them to rush back before an international break. So I do think there's issues there to be sorted out. And as long as Rodgers doesn't go a bit off-piste, as he has done in the past, then Leicester should give them a good game.
Adrian, when you see Leicester so far this season, do you see a team that could break into the top 6? And do you see a team that could end Liverpool's 100% record through 7 games?
I do, actually. Yeah, I'm hearing all that Mark's saying, and it's absolutely bang on. But Leicester City are an excellent side, and I think they're more than capable of going to Anfield and getting a draw, actually. They've scored in their last 3 visits to the ground. There are definitely cracks appearing inside the Liverpool makeup defensively without the ball. We saw it against Salzburg, but throughout the season so far. And Leicester, I think, are one of the most balanced sides. When Rodgers gets his selection right, they're incredibly solid, I think. And of all the sides to go to Anfield, I think they're pretty well equipped actually to handle the onslaught. And of course, you've got the Vardy factor on the counter. So no, I've got a sneaky feeling that Brendan on his first return to Anfield might be able to nick a draw. I think that's the best it could be for Leicester in this game. Hand on heart, I think a narrow Liverpool win is probably most likely with both teams to score. But can they get into the top 6? When I look at Manchester United, I think that they're behind Leicester. I really do in terms of their ability as a team at the moment. And I'm still not completely sold on Chelsea maintaining their form in Europe and the Premier League with this small, youthful squad. So Leicester are capable, I think, of finishing above either of those sides. If they don't, it'll be a pretty close run thing.
Okay. Tottenham and Brighton is the last game we're going to talk about. This one's at the Amex, the early kickoff on Saturday. And Brighton, the home team, 4.1 on site as we record. Spurs, 1.99, just hovering around even money. The draw, 3.66. Brighton plus half a goal, 1.94. And Spurs minus half a goal, 2.01. Over 2 3/4 goals, and this one's priced up at 2.03, and under 2 3/4 goals at 1.88. I mean, we had to talk about Spurs, really, didn't we? Adrian, a 7-2 defeat in the Champions League is about as extreme as things get, really, results-wise. Explain what's happening. It seems like things might be unraveling, but I'm always sort of loath to not to go too far in these things. But you know, where do you think Spurs stand at the moment? It's been a desperate start to the season in many ways.
Yeah, I'll try not to say this with a smile on my face. No, they've gone stale. I think the bottom line is that Tottenham have got issues there with Pochettino and the players. The relationship, I think, is strained. And when you begin to have cracks in matches and you're not fully as one, as a squad, as a team, with the manager, then you can see those holes becoming much, much bigger. And I think that's what happened against Bayern Munich. The morale didn't look good. They certainly didn't pull together as you would expect them to. There was a lack of leadership on the pitch. So no, I do think that isn't a one-off, and that Spurs have problems moving forwards. They should have, I think, got rid of more players in the summer and have more of a reboot. They can't do anything about that now. They've got to get on with it. They've got Kane and Son, and when you've got Kane and Son, you've always got a chance of winning games. So they're not going to collapse into mid-table Spurs, but they're just going to be a lot more inconsistent, I feel, this term than they were last. It's an awkward fixture, this, because Brighton, they'll face a Brighton team that are very different to the Brighton they faced last year. They got a narrow win that day, but had something like 76% of possession or something like that, well into the 70s. It won't be like that this time around. I think Brighton like to keep hold of the ball under Potter. So it'll be a different type of match for them. I think it'll be low scoring, actually. When a team gets tonked 7, what's the reaction? The reaction is to, right, hang on, let's be a bit more cautious next time out. So I expect Spurs to play a little bit with a handbrake on. Brighton have not scored in 4 of their last 6, so they're not exactly free scoring. So I expect low goals. I'd actually go bold here, Ali, and say the under 1.5 goal market might be one to tickle my fancy. I don't know which way that might go, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was a 1-0 win either way, which would be unusual for Spurs. They're not involved in many of those. But I just see this as being quite a close run thing.
Okay, Mark, help us to take the temperature of Graham Potter's Brighton. 7 Premier League games in. They have only scored 5 goals. They've got 1 win and 6 points. They're hosting a Spurs team at the right time. Any chance that they could get something from the game?
Yeah, I think so, Ali. I feel a bit foolish speaking here sort of 7 days after sort of talking Brighton up when they went to Chelsea. It was probably the first time this season that they'd failed to really convince, home or away, really convincingly beaten in that match. I think they conceded 20 odd shots, 17 of which came in one half. So I have seen plenty of positive signs. We're all football league fanatics here on the podcast, and we know all about Graham Potter, so it's no real surprise to see Brighton seamlessly moving towards this more aesthetically pleasing style, you could say. Their issues really have been, as Adrian mentioned there, in the penalty box and converting chances, because they are creating opportunities. They're just not putting them away. So that is a concern when it keeps happening. Obviously, confidence starts to drain a little bit. But at this stage, I'm still on the Brighton bus, believing that things will turn in their favour. They're attempting almost double the amount of shots in the box compared to last season under Chris Hughton, which goes to show how much of a sea change they've had in terms of approach and system. All their metrics are in really healthy positions too. So I think they will get chances on Saturday. It's just whether they can convert them. Adrian's right. This is a real banana skin game for Spurs. I do believe if Brighton turn up and they have got their shooting boots on, they can cause this Spurs team many problems. It's not just jumping on the sort of media narrative about Spurs on a bit of a downturn. The issues are quite glaring, really. The stats might not have suggested it in midweek, but the drop-off in that second half is really alarming from Spurs. Pochettino admitting that his players almost gave up when the game was gone. which you never really want to hear. They're 10 points off the top, 3 wins from 10 across all competitions. Fortunately for them, Serge Aurier is suspended here. He's been a disaster since his signing. Eriksen's been a shadow of himself. Obviously, that off-field nonsense that we've seen this week as well. Alderweireld and Vertonghen have just looked really, really slow and laboured as well. So there are issues there, and they're not just this season. I'm a huge fan of Pochettino. I believe he deserves time to turn things around. I believe he'll be at United or Real Madrid actually next season. But for the time being, he deserves plenty of praise, plenty of time to turn the ship around. It's just quite alarming, really, when you look at their 2019 record. They've only won 22 points from their last 19 Premier League matches. 12 teams have earned more points in that sequence. And then away from home, they've won once across all competitions since mid-January. 9 defeats and 3 draws in that spell. And that win was away at Dortmund, second leg of a Champions League tie, which they were leading 3-0 on aggregate. So, yeah, there are plenty of concerns here. I do think Spurs ordinarily at even money would be appealing, but I am going to jump on the medium bandwagon here and say I can't back them at even money. So for that instance, I'm going to have to be Brighton on side. Brighton plus a half-goal start on the Asian handicap line, please.
Okay, we're going to move away from the Premier League now. Any other business? This could be across Europe. This could be in England's other divisions. Adrian, what's catching your eye this weekend?
I've got a little cheeky treble for you, actually. I was looking at the fixtures and a few caught my eye in terms of away sides that I really didn't fancy. So I'll run you through them. Colchester at home to Stevenage. It's not happening for Mark Sampson at my former club at the moment in caretaker charge. They're not scoring goals. They don't look like they're completely on board as a team with the change. And Colchester are very strong, but don't give very much away on home turf. So Colchester to beat Stevenage. Crewe against Exeter's an eye catcher in League Two. But you look at Exeter's form; they're top of the table. It's outstanding. But most of their games have been against sides that find themselves in the bottom half of the table. 8 of their 11 fixtures have been against bottom half sides. All of their wins have come against bottom half sides. Only 3 games against sides in the top half, haven't won any of them. A couple of draws in there. But yeah, I just feel that Crewe on home turf against an Exeter side that struggled against the big boys, I would fancy Crewe, who have really impressed me. Going forward, they're absolutely fantastic. To make up the treble, I'm going with Grimsby to beat a Mansfield side that are in disarray really under John Dempster. It's not happening for him. I'm amazed really that they haven't made a change so far. They don't look united, and Grimsby are a side that are full of goals, a lot of goal threats, options for the manager to go into this one, and they had a great win at Exeter last weekend. So now I'm going for the Colchester Crewe Grimsby treble. Nice.
I sometimes partake in another betting related podcast focusing on the EFL, and certainly that Grimsby selection is catching my eye this weekend as well. Mark, where are you taking us this weekend?
I'll throw my hat in the ring as well on Grimsby there as well. But I'm going as usual across Europe. 2 that stand out. Firstly, to Russia, Rubin Kazan hosting newly promoted Tambov. It's not going to be much fun, so avoid this game at all costs. I just think the goals line's been set a little bit too high. You can get under 2.25 goals around 1.75. That really should be shorter and should be looked at, because these two are amongst the bottom runners in the Russian Premier League across all the attacking metrics. Really uninspiring stuff, but the bet really comes alive when you look at Rubin's record at home. They've seen under 2.5 in 75% of their home games since the start of 2017-18, including 17 of the last 20. 11 of those 20 going under 1.5, including 4 of their first 5 in Kazan this season. I think if you take under 2.25 goals, you're essentially making money should fewer than 3 goals be scored, which looks like great value to me. But my main plays in France on Sunday. Lille host Nîmes. Lille played Chelsea, of course, on Wednesday night. Very strong operators at home under Christian Galtier. Deservedly lost that match against Chelsea, but did give Chelsea quite a few problems going forward. That we were probably expecting a bit of a drop-off from Lille from this season. As 500 to 1 shots, they finished second last year. Remarkable campaign. Obviously, Nicolas Pepe and a few others were taken, but their sporting director, Luis Campos, is a real master when it comes to recruitment. He's found another gem, Nigerian striker Victor Osimhen, scored midweek, has been in firing form for Lille this season. And I think they'll continue their really good, strong home form here. They've won 17 of 23 league games at home since the start of last season. I can see that improving again. You can get them minus three quarter goal handicap start at 1.83. Obviously, we're making money if Lille win, getting a full stakes payout if they win by 2 or more goals. Just on Nîmes, they were absolutely terrific last year after promotion, played some really exciting stuff, consolidated in mid-table with the smallest budget. Kind of look at what Norwich are doing in the Premier League this season. That's what Nîmes were doing in France last year. Unfortunately for them, they lost a whole load of players to bigger, more richer clubs. They lost 7 of their top 9 performers in expected goals. During the summer, they have replaced them, but there are a few teething problems there. 4 defeats in 8, failed to score in 4 of those games as well. And since promotion, they've lost 15 of 21 games against top half teams, including 10 of 11 away from home. So Lille look a good thing at home to Nîmes.
Okay. Smashing insight from both of you throughout the podcast, but it's time to pick your best selection, starting with you, Mark.
Yeah, just that one I mentioned there. Lille minus 0.75 on the Asian handicap at home to Nîmes on Sunday in France. They proved many times down to Christian Gauthier, but they're very strong at home. 17 wins from 23 in Ligue 1. I expect them to get a reasonably comfortable win against the Nîmes team, who are still finding their feet this season.
Adrian, what are you most bullish about?
I'm going to delve into League 2, where Northampton have impressed me actually of late. They're a team that's built up a bit of momentum. They've had some good home wins against excellent teams of late. And they play a Leyton Orient side that are kind of in a state of flux at the moment after Ross Embleton has sort of announced that he's going to step aside. So here, my angle is on the half-time and full-time pick. Northampton have the second best half-time record in the division behind Colchester, 5-4-2 in terms of wins, draws, and losing at half-time. And Leyton Orient have not led at half-time once this season. They have 5 draws and 6 defeats at half-time. So I'm going to go with Northampton to dominate this game, score early on, have the lead at half-time, and to then go on and claim the victory. So Northampton half-time and full-time for me.
There we go. Well, thank you very much for listening or watching, guys, this week. Hope you've enjoyed this Matchbook Weekend football podcast. Thank you to Adrian, Clarke, and thanks to Mark O'Hare for their time and their insight and no little expertise. We'll be back again next week, and we look forward to speaking to you then.